Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the NFL version of Proline. It's week 3. I'm John Creighton in Las Vegas, joined by professional handicappers Harvard Barnhart and Zach Simony. Going to take a look at 3 NFL games for the weekend. Injuries are bound in NFL. That's not going to stop these point spreads. And Zach, how about some teams that you look at where the injuries may either devastate a team for the first couple months of the season or particularly hurt the point spread?
I mean, these players are dropping like flies. People that are in some high-stakes fantasy leagues are having to adjust like they never had before. I mean, you've got Eddie Lacy that was injured for the Packers. Tony Romo went down. And just a string of players. So it's making things interesting from the fantasy side of things, and it's going to make things interesting for handicapping. So I think it's to the edge of somebody handicapping games like myself, John, and Hollis, because odds makers have an even more of a disadvantage to put out a supreme line, not knowing the backup. We're already seeing what's happened with Geno Smith getting punched and Ryan Fitzpatrick winning these first 2 games. Who knows what's going to happen there? And then we're coming off a week where these teams that historically lose. You can go down the list: the Jaguars, the Raiders, the Browns, and there's a couple others that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but they all won in week 2, and they were 0-1 in week 1. So the shift is not there yet. Odds makers don't know where to put these lines out, and it's going to make it for a good week for handicap. And I know Hollis has some good angles to discuss on that first 2-week scenario.
Well, first of all, when do you think the last time, we'll throw this to the audience. In fact, anybody that has this answer, why don't you just email our office and I'll give you a free week of service. When was the last time Cleveland, Jacksonville, Oakland, and Tampa Bay all won in the same week? So send that to, I'm sure John will give you the address to where to email that. I'm not sure what it is, but let's find out from our viewers. We have a lot of viewers, and some of them are pretty sharp. Let's see what you got on that one. Cleveland, Jacksonville, Oakland, and Tampa Bay all won outright last week. Maybe it's never happened. Maybe it has. Why don't you all check it out and send us your comments. Speaking of 0-2, what is going on with this NFL? I mean, Roselle's got to love this parody. All of a sudden, after 2 weeks, we got Baltimore, Detroit, Seattle, Chicago, Houston, New York Giants, New Orleans, Philadelphia, Indianapolis. My gosh, we should be talking about those 8 teams, hey, these guys are going to hit the playoffs. But no, we're talking about them. They're all 0-2. 0-2 teams, historically, yes, they come into week 3. We all hear the amateurs sit there and say, well, they have to win. No one's going to go 0-3. In fact, if you look at the 0-2 teams historically, only 18% of them that are 0-2 make the playoffs. So some of these teams, they're not going to make anything except disappointments as they knock off other teams and ruin their journey, but they're not going to make it themselves. As far as injuries, you want to take a look at Matt Stafford and get an injury report on him. You want to get an injury update on Drew Brees. He's hurting. I'm not sure if he's going to play this week. And as far as Tony Romo going down, it doesn't matter who you put behind that big offensive line. It's a system. Wheaton, he'll be just fine. And for you fantasy guys, let's go ahead and take a shot and throw him in there. You might be the only one that picks him, and I'm sure that could give you a few extra points. So, John, why don't you let the viewers know where they can maybe email that Cleveland, Jacksonville, Oakland, and Tampa Bay answer.
That'll be right there on the screen. They can see it now. As far as injuries, the team that I'm looking at is not on the offensive side of the ball, but the Colts. Vontae Davis is one of the few defensive players they have who pretty good, and he's banged up. And we see this team starting 0-2. More pressure now on Andrew Luck to deliver, and he's struggling badly. And I think this Colts defense is below average, and they're going to suffer with a guy like Davis not there. All right, let's get to a Sunday game. Get the Bengals playing at the Ravens here in AFC North Showdown. They meet twice a year. Got the Ravens here as a 2.5-point home favorite, despite being winless. One of your winless teams, Hollis. The total here is 45. And this Bengals team really seemed to have it all. Deep defensive talent. Again, they got balance on offense. We saw their star running back Hill fumble a couple times last week, so they said, well, we'll put in Bernard. He ended up with 123 yards. So this Bengals team, Hollis, 2-0, but are they for real, or is this usually September, hot start, and then come January, but they one and done?
Well, after the first playoff game, they do have a golf reservation out here in Vegas at Shadow Creek. because they already know they're going to lose that first game. But like you said, meanwhile, I think they just keep on, Dalton's doing fine. They're putting up the points. But the main thing with Cincinnati, which I think faltered last year, was their defense is back. What a strong secondary. They've got ball control with Hill and Bernard. I'm telling you, this is not a bad team. But when you look at the Baltimore, they lost a heartbreaker, I think, with Denver. They lost last week. In fact, they would have won the game, but their own player screwed up, had the penalty, and the last play of the game, 26 seconds left. It kept the drive alive, and then Carr, he threw a touchdown pass with 26 seconds left. And you have to then fly all the way across country and think about that. You get in late. You're not in a good mood with that. You're 0-2. You're at home. You've got double revenge playing against Cincinnati. It's a conference opponent. Your strength is your run defense. Cincy's strength is their running the ball. So I think the two heads meet each other and no one scores. I don't care who scores in this game. No one's going to put up many points against these defense. I like the total score. It will be in the 30s. That means 39 and under for the total score. We're looking at the 45 as the number. Let's take that thing under the points, under the totals.
Well, I could see that with these physical defenses that know each other very well. This Baltimore team, when I look at them on paper, I like everything they have. They seem to balance on offense. They got a elite, above-average quarterback to elite in Joe Flacco. They got a lot of guys who were productive last year. The secondary is healthy, which it wasn't last year, and yet they're not playing well at 0-2. So, Zach, what do you make of this Ravens team?
Well, like I said, they've had two games that really just didn't go their way in the fourth quarter. Derek Carr came back with that comeback for the Raiders, was hitting the deep ball with Amari Cooper, and they really didn't have enough film on the Raiders, I don't think. I think they expected Gloin to have that starting job this week. You saw that line trickle down Sunday morning from 7 to 4.5, and that was a quick fly adjustment from the books, and it was a quick fly adjustment from the Ravens, who didn't look prepared for the play action pass and skill sets of Carr and Cooper on Sunday. And the game against Denver, it was a defensive game, and I think that's what we're going to see this week against the Bengals. These two teams played some great matchups last year. I think it was a split, if I recall correctly, but they played great games last year. And this is the game, and Andy Dalton has 3 or 4 games a year that it's just like Andrew Luck, playing a top defense as the Ravens are. Can he rise to the occasion in his own division with a tough challenge? I mean, this is the chance for the Bengals to really take control of this division and knock out the Ravens. If you start your season off 3-0 and they're 0-3, I mean, that's pretty much setting the stage for a successful season. You just have to battle the Pittsburgh Steelers. But like we talked about before the show, I believe the Ravens will be ready to respond. They time and time again, they rise to the occasion. Joe Flacco's not going anywhere. I really like the way he was throwing the football last week against the Raiders. They just need a little bit better effort from the defense, and I think when you face a quarterback like Andy Dalton, those opportunities will be there, and they'll come back with the win here. So I think 2.5 is a low value on the Ravens, and we'll go ahead and grab that number.
All right, and they did play twice last year, very close games, but the Cincinnati did get the sweep, 23-16 in Week 1, and then 27-24 in Week 8. I'm gonna go against the Bengals in this one as well. I don't care for the coaching staff. I don't care for their road play historically over the last couple of years. And I think the Ravens are much better than they've shown. The schedule maker really killed them when you think about it. At Denver to open the season, then at Oakland. So they've been a long way from home, a lot of time zones. They almost won at Denver 19-13, were leading late until that pick 6. And then last week's game, the offense exploded with 448 yards. What did Flacco have? 384. Actually, they had almost 500 total yards, and Flacco 384 passing. So I think this offense is going to connect this week. And the Ravens have been terrific against a team with a winning record, 14-4 against the spread. And then when you look at the head-to-head matchups between these division rivals, home team 5-1 against the spread, the chalk 5-2-1 ATS. So I too will take up Baltimore, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a defensive game as well. All right, before we get to our night game on Sunday night, if you want to get free plays from Jim Feist, you can get them via text, or you can go to jimwins.com, as well as the free pick phone.